Sister labeled my daughter as a mistake, so I withdrew wedding funds and now she's struggling to finance her big day. So, I, F32, Deanna, am the eldest of 5 siblings, and I've taken on the role of the family caretaker for as long as I can remember. I helped our parents until their passing, and, frankly, it's exhausting. Dad died of brain cancer 3 years ago, and it was heartbreaking to watch him deteriorate over time, and Mom passed peacefully overnight after a long hard battle with breast cancer earlier this year. Fuck cancer. So as the oldest, I just sort of became the de facto parent. I don't mind as I love my siblings, and it's kind of my thing to big sister friends and family a lot. I'm sort of ship's counselor, and I financially help out my family. I don't mind, as I work in tech, have a side gig doing art, and inherited land and money from Mom and Dad, all that to say it's no real loss. A few years ago, I adopted my cousin's Charlie M45 child, who I will just use her nickname Decker. My baby loves kickboxing, after my cousin went to prison for murdering the Decker's mother in an alcohol and drug-fueled rage, which is too long a story to add here. It was a chaotic year of mourning, paperwork and court hearings, but the adoption was finalized when the Decker was 5. Now, she's a happy, healthy 13-year-old who calls me Mom. She's in therapy, and has been since I legally could send her as she witnessed her mother's death, and I couldn't be prouder of how resilient she is. She's my girl, my rock star, my whole heart, and I call her that, literally my heart. Fast forward to my sister's, Clara, F30, upcoming wedding. I was thrilled for her at first, and she asked me to be Mo. I cried in joy and offered for my wife Honey, because we like the incredible Lowell, F40 and I to pay for it. Don't worry, I asked Honey first. But during a bachelorette dinner I set up, she made a hurtful comment about my daughter, calling her a mistake and saying I shouldn't have taken her in. I stared at her and asked her what she meant, and she said it wasn't like I was supposed to even have kids, as I am married to another woman, then said no hate or anything and laughed, but then she doubled down that Decker is likely damaged and a handful. Guys, Decker is the sweetest child alive. I mean, she is a teen, so yeah, sometimes she can get challenging or rebellious here or there, but when I say she is my whole heart, I mean it. She made us a family, and made our house a home. She smiles easy, cries openly, and has the emotional intelligence I wish I had myself. She always asks how are you doing? And she really means it, willing to listen to people. But she's a damaged mistake. I felt like a character in a dark, twisted episode of a sci-fi show, defending my choice to adopt. Felt like fighting the Borg, like I just wouldn't assimilate. I didn't laugh it off with my sister and her friends. I just stared at her in pure disbelief. I think she knew I was hurt because she quickly changed the subject. I said I better get home, paid for everything in 3 more rounds, and went home to my family. My sister came over the next day to yell at me for leaving and cutting them off after the 3 rounds I paid for. She said I owe her a do-over for ruining the whole weekend because I can't take a joke. Honey, who I of course told what happened, asked my sister to repeat exactly what she said about our daughter. My sister refused, and kept calling Decker Charlie's child, and I just was holding back so many tears. I told my sister that I wouldn't be contributing a dime to her wedding expenses, that I won't stop helping her pay her rent up until she moves in with her husband, but I won't be in or pay for the wedding of a person who sees my child as a mistake. Honestly, I was ready to go full-on Jedi and sever that connection, but Honey helped me temper myself. My sister lost it, threw the can of soda water we gave her at me, screamed, "How am I supposed to pay for this?" And I said, "You have over a year, you can save up." So left, shoving Honey out of the way in the process, and blew up our sibling group chat. My other siblings are split. Some think I'm overreacting with cutting off funds for the wedding, while others agree that my sister crossed a line and needed the wake-up call. Now, I feel bad for my sister. I do love her and she is distressed by this, but I can't shake the feeling that standing up for my daughter is more important. Ida for refusing to pay for her wedding after that? Update 1. Honey and I took Decker out to the local Oktoberfest celebrations. She had a blast, did crafts, danced to music, had beer, it was not beer, in a pint glass, and generally had a great time. On the ride home my wife broached the long-awaited topic. We asked her how she felt about Grandma's passing, then went into how everyone handles things differently. We asked if Mama, me, or Mommy, Honey, ever was hurtful, and she named a couple moments we'd been snappy or wouldn't let her do things, like a party at 2 a.m. But no, nothing else. We asked about Clara and she got quiet. Honey just looked at me, but I was driving, so I just said, "You can tell us anything, Goober, you know that," and she clammed up. I got my girls home and hugged my heart/Decker and went to the den. About 2 hours later my wife came downstairs to me and said Decker is in bed but no asleep and I should talk to her. I asked why and she simply said that Decker is willing to talk about it. I went up. Decker was ready for bed, in her PJs, reading. I just sat down on the side of the bed and asked her how she was. She just said, "Mom told you, huh?" I told her I didn't know anything, and Decker then said that Clara makes her uncomfortable and said hurtful things. When my wife and I weren't around, Clara would call her the lost puppy or the stray, and once Decker remembers her to have told her to her face, "You're not real family," and that once Honey and I get a real child we will dump her. I can't explain the rage, the absolute, total, and complete red I saw as my daughter broke down telling me that she behaves so well and is so obsessed with grades so she can prove she is worth loving, worth keeping. After calling my wife, we sat her down and told her that she is the best thing that ever happened to us, and that even if we do have more children, she is our firstborn and our love. I cried and held her, telling her she was my whole heart and that nothing will ever change that. She saved us, and I am so proud of her and us and all we've grown to become. I can't ever stop loving her. Neither can her mom. We love her more than air. That will never change. Then I explained that Auntie was wrong for this. Auntie is jealous of her. Jealous of how much we love her. Auntie needs help, but we can't give that help, so she won't be around for a while. Decker asked us to stop talking to her like a child, so I was blunt. She's my sister and I love her. You're my daughter and I love you more. I told her my sister was wrong and hateful. I'm sorry that she didn't feel she could come to her mom or I, but she can. Every time. Anytime. We will choose her. Always. Decker asked me if it's her fault I hate Clara, and I just told her hate is a choice and I don't hate Clara. I do love her. But sometimes loving a person means you correct them. Actions have consequences. My daughter got quiet and handed me her phone, and Clara had been texting her awful things since she left my home. I can't even type them because I want to throw things, but it's when I read my fucking sister texting my teenage daughter, "Go tell your so-called mom like a snitch and prove me right." I took a screenshot and texted it to myself. Decker fell asleep around midnight and my wife and I went to bed. I texted my sister the screenshot and said, "You come into my home as my sister and treat my child like this? No. Mom and Dad would be ashamed of you. This is not how you treat any child. Let alone your own niece. I have loved you since as long as I can remember. I know you were not raised to treat children so terribly. But as of now, you are not accepted in my home. You will not speak to or contact me, my wife, or my child. I will give you the money for October, Clara, but November on? That's your responsibility. I am no longer going to help. I'm sorry. This breaks my heart. But you crossed a serious and unforgivable line. Decker is my daughter. I am her mom. Do not doubt me here, and I want to be clear, if you ever come sideways at my family again, or contact my daughter at all, I will take legal recourse. From today on, we are low contact. If you try to make this into a bigger issue, it will be no contact. If you don't understand, here are resources to help spell it out. I love you, D. Update 2. I am the eldest of the siblings. Mom and Dad have been sick for years on and off. So to those who think I've just started taking over as some weird power trip or something, no. I've managed their finances, maintained their properties, and taken care of all their affairs before either of them passed. Dad simply wasn't mentally able after a while, and Mom never had a head for that sort of thing. 2. Yes, I was mostly left in charge of my siblings growing up. Both my parents had businesses and worked often 7-day weeks. I cooked dinner and helped with homework and whatnot. I'm aware that's not very normal, and I already know some of you will call my parents terrible for this, but they simply didn't know better. I won't hate them for any of it, and as much as it caused me some negative effects, it also made my siblings feel safe. I'm proud of being able to protect them and be there for them when they were young so they didn't feel how I felt. And yes, I am also in therapy. 3. I was the sole caretaker of my parents when they passed. The reasons are complicated, but the short of it is, Dad got verbally abusive towards the end and Mom got severely depressed and blunt. They were a challenge to deal with on the best of days. I hold no ill will towards them, but there it is. My siblings didn't want to be around them. Dad was hurt and changed his will. Mom followed suit. 4. For those telling me I am rewarding Clara by paying for literally this month, and that I'm not a real mom or a bad mom by loving my daughter's tormentor, I'm envious. Your world is so black and white. Rent is literally due today and the money was already in transfer to her via auto banking, and Clara isn't getting rewarded, she is remaining housed. But from now on, she's on her own. 5. Clara and I used to be pretty close, but she did get distant around the time Decker was adopted. I didn't know exactly why, just that the new dynamic was a challenge for her. I know she hates Charlie and considers him evil and irredeemable. She had a really hard time losing our cousin-in-law, Decker's biological mother, as they were very close, so I assume her issues stem from this. 7. I inherited the majority of everything, though my siblings got sizable sums. 3 got all but one of the businesses my parents owned, and everyone got trusts. Clara spiraled after Mom passed and had a mental health crisis. Before we got her help, she traveled, drank, and gambled away her entire inheritance. Long story for another time. I didn't have a moment to cool down and wait until today to give myself a chance to make a level-headed decision regarding my sister. Clara has spun the tale that I am jealous she found a loving man and am withholding Mom and Dad's money from her. She gave the perception that I was the one abusing Decker, putting her down, and telling her she isn't my real daughter. That shut down when I sent my text a couple days ago. Yesterday, Clara was on my doorstep. She was crying and begging for me to let her in, but my wife and her friends were inside, and I made it clear I don't want her near my family as she emotionally abused my daughter and physically harmed my wife. I told her to leave or I would call the police to have her removed. I was going to call the police anyway because I told her never to come to our home again, and there she was. There's a reason I said this in text, so I could in an event like this show them clear as day that she would know she is welcome. Clara started to beg, saying she will apologize to Decker and she was drunk and upset and made mistakes. I could tell she was drunk. Or high, or something. I told her it's not a simple mistake to bully a traumatized teen girl and make her feel unloved and unwanted by her own family, and to text her that she is worthless and expendable. What the fuck? I got angry and just started to raise my voice. I don't know when I started to yell, but I did. I just lost it. She's a cold-hearted, awful, self-serving brat. Spoiled beyond belief to being so delusional that this all would just go away, that she's entitled to the money my wife and I make, that our parents gave us after all she did. She needs fucking help, and I am done being the giving tree here. You don't ever hurt my child. She's lucky I have a head to keep my hands to myself, and luckier still honey isn't out here, because she certainly would not, so go the fuck home. Clara slapped me across the face and called me a bitch and a traitor, that I choose that demon spawn of a child over her, that I love Decker more than my own real family and turn my back on her this way. Honey must have been right by the door, because before I could make a very bad choice she had yanked me inside, told my sister that she had 60 seconds to fuck off, and slammed the door closed. Clara left quickly, but we still called the police and handed over the footage from our property cameras of what happened, as well as the texts from our phones. Clara went ballistic over text, telling me awful things, ending with her hoping I'd take my own life and she would celebrate. Absolutely unhinged awful shit like that. I blocked her, sent every piece of footage in a Google Drive, and dropped the link in the sibling group chat and sent it to Kevin, her fiancé. I then sat down and cried myself into a fit before Decker came home from practice. I put on my mom face for her and made sure she did her homework. Then I went to the den and called my aunt, Decker's biological grandmother, and told her what happened. My aunt told me that Clara is renewing her conspiracy, that I'm harming Decker, and that I need to be careful because she suspects Clara is having some sort of mental break and might do something crazy. Honey and I have spent this whole day working on a request for a protective order from her, making sure Decker's school knows no one is to pick her up but us. And get a lawyer, because I think legal action is needed here. I told my eldest of the brothers that Clara needs help and asked if he could check on her, because she might be as much a danger to herself as she is now presenting to be to me and my family. He got quiet and said, "Can't you handle this?" And said this drama was too much and he's busy. I was so stunned I just blurted out, "Are you fucking kidding me right now?" Before I just hung up. My other sister is now over, helping me deal with this. My other brother has gone to see after Clara, but says he will only make sure she hasn't hurt herself, but beyond that she can get wrecked for what she's done. Kevin called me and said he went through the Google Drive and begged me not to call the police on Clara. He said that she has been having a really bad time, and has struggled with drinking and has been stealing his medications, and he's trying to get her help. But if she gets arrested, he doesn't have the funds for bail or any legal help. I told him it's too late. The police have been called and he needs to get her into some sort of rehab or something. He asked for our help to pay for a facility he was thinking of, and I told him to keep her away from me and my family. He started to cry and told me I'm an awful sister. That I don't care about Clara and her struggles, and that she's just lost and he's underwater trying to keep her from going off a deep end. I didn't reply after that and have just been sitting around the house waiting for the police to call back, trying to get my crying out the way before Decker comes home from school. I feel wretched and terrible, because not matter what I do now, it will just never feel right. I was to look after them all, and now my sister is this lunatic hellbent on burning my life down, and my brother is alarmingly just indifferent to it all. I am used to being the one that holds the family together and handle things. But I don't feel like I can handle anything anymore. WTF is my life? Update 3. Too tired to do the song and dance, so if you want the rundown, it's on my account. I think I just desperately need to write this out. We went NC with the whole of my side of the family about a month and a half ago, aside from my other sister, not Clara. Decker has been in therapy, and frankly, so have I and Honey, both individually and a bi-weekly couples therapy session. A lot has changed. I didn't realize how much the abuse I suffered at the hands of my uncle really affected me. His reaction to Decker never bothered me or really had a stake in my emotional or mental state, but more that my mother made me forgive him and be polite when he was around. It's always been that way. I was the eldest, so I turned the other cheek until I had no cheeks, then I turned the old ones. I was never really permitted to have negative emotions or get angry. This situation with Clara blew a lot of dust up, and Honey and I started to have issues. She noted how reserved I tend to be, and even with her, I struggle with asking for what I want or expressing displeasure. I shut down or deflect. It sucks to learn this about yourself when the rest of your world is falling apart. Clara was arrested for my assault and ended up doing a mental health program for a month rather than getting a conviction. As such, her record is clean of that from what I understand. It was hard cutting her and the others off. My other sister was the one keeping me up to date on everything. Clara got out a while ago. She's been trying to get in touch every way she can. She got a new number, email, Facebook, even TikTok. She's written and mailed numerous letters. I am exhausted because I hate cutting everyone off. It's so isolating always having my siblings around, and now only really having one sister so suddenly is really lonely. I focus on Decker and Honey. Honey seems happier overall. She's dancing in the kitchen again, is more affectionate with me, and is more excited to go out and do things. And Decker is also happier. We've focused less on her grades and praise her more for her sense of kindness, her stick-to-it attitude, and more. She's more open with me in particular. She talks about crushes and friends more now, shares about the intricate life of a teen. Lol, it's really very cute. I'm not so okay, but my family is safe and happy, which is what matters. Clara's fiancé Kevin reached out to me 2 days ago. Clara has been released and has been out for a week or so, it sounds like, but she still has outpatient rehab to do. It's encouraged for her to have family and to be supported, Kevin says, and he says she isn't doing well. She started talking about self-harm. And she confided in him that the same uncle that abused me, abused her. He's begging me to talk to her and help her through this. He keeps reminded me of how she was before all this and how close we were. Calling what we were close may be incorrect, because based on what I'm learning, our relationship was toxic from the start. I was an enabling sister to a manipulative and narcissistic one. I held my ground and spoke to Honey, who agrees I should keep NC and block Kevin and simply rely on my other sister for info. But I can't help but feel guilty. I wish Clara well. But I can't risk cracking the door open and risk the well-being of my family. I think I just feel alone. I know I can't have her in my life anymore. It just hurts. Sorry for the delay in update. And to those who have been gentle or at least firm but fair with me in my private messages, I thank you. There was never a manual on how to be a good wife or mother, and I have lived an existence of feeling so out of my depth. Update 4. So after my last update, I was essentially in crisis mode. My wife and I locked everything down: school, security, legal stuff. I didn't sleep for more than 2 hours at a time because I was just waiting for the next horrible thing to happen. And then, well, it did. 3 days after the last incident, my brother, the one who was indifferent, called me at 3 a.m. Now, this brother is not someone who calls at odd hours unless it's life or death, so my stomach immediately dropped. Him, frantic: Clara's in the hospital. It's bad. Apparently, Kevin, her fiancé, woke up in the middle of the night to find her having some kind of episode. She was sobbing, half-conscious, and had taken a mix of alcohol and stolen meds. He called 911, and they had to pump her stomach. But the terrifying part? She had a note. A note. From what Kevin told me, the letter was just pages of vitriol, bouncing between suicidal ideation and straight-up unhinged hatred toward me, Honey, and, most disgustingly, Decker. She blamed me for stealing her life, accused me of turning everyone against her, called Decker a curse, and even went on some conspiracy rant about how I had brainwashed our parents into leaving me the majority of the estate. The hospital immediately placed her on a 72-hour psych hold, and Kevin, bless his dumb, desperate heart, actually called me to ask if I'd help cover her medical bills. I think I blacked out for a second from sheer disbelief. Me, you want me to pay for the woman who just wrote an entire manifesto about how much she wants to ruin my life? Kevin, she's sick, D. She needs help. You have the means to get her into a real facility, one that can actually treat her. Me, and? So does literally everyone else in this family. Where are they? Kevin, silence. Then he started crying again, going on about how he loves Clara but doesn't know what to do, how he's been trying to manage her spiraling for months, and how he's terrified that if she gets released, she'll just try again. And I get it. I really, really do. But I had to draw the line. I told him I was done. Done fixing, done funding, done trying to make sense of someone who had been actively targeting my child. I told him that if he was serious about helping her, then he needed to figure out a plan that did not involve me. Then I hung up. That was 3 days ago. Meanwhile, in Decker land, while all of this was happening, I was trying my absolute hardest to keep my baby out of it. She knew something was wrong, obviously, because kids are psychic when it comes to their parents being stressed. Then, out of nowhere, she came up to me and asked, "Am I a burden?" Y'all. I broke. Right there. Just shattered into a million pieces. Because here's my 13-year-old daughter, carrying the weight of something she should never have had to bear. I pulled her into the tightest hug I could manage and told her she was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. That she was my heart, my soul, my everything. That nothing, and I mean nothing, would ever change that. She cried into my shoulder, and I held her for what felt like hours. After she calmed down, she hesitated and then asked if she could go back to therapy twice a week instead of once. That's when I realized, my baby girl had been keeping so much of this inside because she didn't want to bother me. Absolutely not. Therapy appointments doubled immediately. Fallout and the final decision: Clara's 72-hour hold ended, and they extended it another 2 weeks after she had another violent outburst. From what my other brother told me, who finally decided to step up and check on her, she is not okay. She's paranoid, volatile, and still obsessed with me and Decker. At this point, there's no coming back from this. I've officially gone no contact. That means, Clara is permanently blocked on everything. Decker's school has been informed that under no circumstances is Clara allowed near her. A restraining order is in the works. Every sibling and extended family member has been notified about the situation. And finally, I will not be attending her wedding. Kevin is still holding on to hope that things will magically resolve themselves, but I know better. That wedding is going to be a circus of toxicity, and I refuse to let my wife or daughter be anywhere near it. I've been focusing on my wife and daughter, trying to bring some sense of normalcy back into our home. We've been doing weekly movie nights, trying new recipes together, and just being us again. It's going to take time, but we'll get there. As for Clara, I truly, truly hope she gets the help she needs. I hope one day she can look back and realize how much pain she's caused, not just to me, but to everyone who's tried to love her. But that's not my battle anymore.